This is USP dissolution method of acetaminophen 500 mg tablet experiment. Data analysis and calculations. Our objectives were to apply the USP dissolution method to acetaminophen 500 mg tablets and to compare the calculated percentages dissolved with the USP reference values, tolerance or Q. Then, our main objective was to compare the calculated percentages with the USP reference values. These reference values are tolerance or Q. What is tolerance or Q? It is a reference value specified in the individual monograph, pharmacopoeial monograph, as shown to the right. Again, the quantity Q is the amount of dissolved active ingredient specified in the individual monograph expressed as a percentages of the labeled content. USP reference table for dissolution results interpretation is essential, but unfortunately we will not be able to apply it in our case because we are testing only 2 tablets, and the minimum number of tablets to be tested according to the USP is 6, as you can see in the attached table. Here we are showing acetaminophen tablets part in acetaminophen monograph in the USP. As you can see, the dissolution method description, below which you will find tolerance or Q. As you can see, tolerance not less than 80% Q of the labeled amount of acetaminophen is dissolved within 30 minutes. You can find this part of the USP in your student manual. Now, the question is, what part of dissolution results is compared with tolerance Q? The answer is percentage dissolved, also known as percentage released, which is equal to total amount dissolved divided by the claimed amount or labeled amount times 100%. It's important to know that the claimed amount is also known as labeled amount, and in our case, it is 500 milligrams, the amount stated on the tablet or the brand name. How to calculate percentage dissolved? First, and to do so, you will need to prepare or to construct your calibration curve. Remember, the stock solution concentration was 50 mg% because 50 mg acetaminophen were dissolved in up to 100 ml phosphate buffer pH 5.8 in a volumetric flask, from which we prepared our standard solutions. To calculate the concentration of standard solutions, you have first to calculate what? The dilution factor. Then the concentration of each standard solution is equal to stock solution concentration divided by the dilution factor. Please use Excel functions, equations, and properties properly. Now, plot the absorbances versus the concentration in milligram% weight per volume. This is your calibration curve. Add the title, the chart title, and the axis titles. The y-axis title is absorbance, while the x-axis title is concentration milligram percent weight per volume. It is calibration curve of acetaminophen in phosphate buffer pH 5.8 at 243 nanometers. Now, at the trend line, the trend line is linear. Remember to display the linear equation and R square. Y in the equation represents absorbance, while X represents the concentration in milligram percent. Having doing so, we need to construct our samples table. Here, we tested 2 tablets or 2 samples. What is the dilution factor here? Always calculate dilution factor as final volume divided by initial volume. Remember, samples before being tested for their absorbance was diluted as 1 ml of the sample was withdrawn and completed up to what? Up to 50 ml in a volumetric flask, using, of course, the medium. The diluted concentration of the sample will be calculated using the calibration curve equation. Again, Y in the calibration curve equation represents the absorbance, while X the concentration. Rearrange your equation to be absorbance minus the y-intercept, as it is positive in the original calibration curve equation, divided by the slope of the equation. Please keep in mind that the numbers we are using here are hypothetical numbers. Now, what is the concentration before dilution, or the vessel concentration? It is equal to the diluted concentration times the dilution factor, which is here equal to 50. Now, the amount in 900 ml. Here, you have to remember that our samples, our tablets were tested in 100 ml of the medium. Then, if the concentration unit is milligram percent, that means that in each 100 ml of the sample, there is X milligram, the calculated milligram of the active ingredient, or acetaminophen in our case. Then the amount in 100 ml medium volume will be equal to the concentration before dilution times 900 ml divided by 100. And finally, to calculate the percentage dissolved, Remember, it is equal to the amount in 900 mLs divided by the claimed amount or labeled amount, which is in our case equal to 500 milligrams times 100%. Now, build up your portfolio pages. How? Use a Word document to maintain the layout we discussed during our first meeting. Please prepare this blank page, empty page, save it and keep it to be used in this experiment and all upcoming experiments. Now, just copy and paste Excel tables and charts. Always start with results, tables, then calculations and data analysis. After calculating the percentages dissolved for our 2 tablets or 2 samples, we have to build our conclusion. But we cannot use the USP acceptance table because we only tested 2 tablets as we mentioned earlier. Each tablet will be evaluated alone. For example, if the percentage dissolved of tablet 1 was 80.5%, the conclusion will be tablet 1 has percentage dissolved equal to 80.5% within 30 minutes, which is more than the USP limit, tolerance or Q, which stated that not less than 80% dissolved within 30 minutes. Then tablet 1 passed the dissolution test. But if the percentage dissolved of tablet 2 was 79.6, then the conclusion will be tablet 2 has percentage dissolved equal to 79.6% within 30 minutes, which is less than the USP limit, Q or tolerance, not less than 80% dissolved within 30 minutes. Then tablet 1 failed the dissolution test. Also, you need to explain percentage dissolved more than 110% using USP limit. Remember, acetaminophen tablets contain not less than 90% and not more than 110% of the labeled amount of acetaminophen. Here are some questions for you to answer. Most of these questions were explored during our practical session video. The first one, describe dissolution apparatus. What is the differences between dissolution method type 1 and dissolution method type 2 in the USP? Always cover dissolution vessels. Why and how would this affect the calculated percentage dissolved? Remember the fact that water can evaporate at any temperature, even though slower than its boiling point. And if the vessel was kept uncovered, this will lead to evaporation of the medium. We are dealing with aqueous-based medium, and this will result in changing the volume of the dissolution medium, leading to more concentrated samples than the real samples. Never handle tablets to be tested with uncovered hands. This should be done to avoid transferring lipid secretions from your hands to the tablet. Lipid secretions or a product that may cover your hands to the tablet. This will represent or cause the formation of a barrier layer that will limit the wetting of the tablet, which will affect the disintegration and dissolution. The height of the paddle rotating element should be kept to 25 plus minus 2 mm above the bottom of the vessel. This should be done to maintain the paddle away from the tested tablet, and also not to touch the walls of the vessel, and both things will cause problems during dissolution. Samples should be withdrawn, taken from the middle third vertically and midpoint between the shaft and the paddle and the wall of the vessel horizontally. Always avoid upper surfaces because you will end with relatively diluted samples, and the bottom because you will end with the relatively concentrated samples. Samples should be filtered to remove any undissolved particles. This will affect the absorbance measurement. Always discard the first part or portion of the filtrate. This was explained during the practical session video. Why we need to dilute our sample? To avoid absorbances higher than the absorbance range. Thank you all.